Good evening. Personally, right now, in my personal life, I'm reading a book right now. Some of y'all probably have heard of it. It's a book called Good to Great. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with it, it's essentially a look of how good companies and organizations go from being good or average to taking the next step and being great. And one of the parts of the book that actually stood out to me was when they were comparing different types of leaders. And the two types of leaders they compared were level 5 leaders and comparison leaders. So level 5 leaders, essentially what that means is it's the highest type of leader an organization can obtain. It's on a scale of 1 to 5. Number 5 is the highest one they could obtain. And what they used to compare both leaders was what they called the window and mirror theory. Now, essentially what this theory states is that level 5 leaders, when they experience success or things are going well, they will tend to look out the window and say, it's not because of me, it's because of we're lucky enough to have great people in our organization. We're lucky enough to have these certain situations. But then when the opposite happens, they look in the mirror and say, what did I do wrong? What can I do to fix this? Comparison leaders do vice versa, kind of. When things go great, they kind of want to boast about themselves and say, yes, we accomplished this or we did that because it was because of me. That's what they would do. But then when things go wrong, they just want to go around and point fingers, be like, oh, well, the economy's bad, or we got a few bad employees, or something along those lines. And the reason I bring that up is, as Christians, we need to remember that when good things happen, we always need to give thanks to, well, not only God, but to those who helped us along the way. And when things don't go well, we need to be accountable for what transpires and figure out a way to surpass that. So tonight I would like to discuss a few points of how we could obtain this type of humility and accountability that I kind of read about with level 5 leaders. First, we need to realize that none of us achieved success on our own. I kind of remember back when we did the men's retreat back in the fall, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was each individual that was there was that we had at least one individual in our life that we could say they helped us greatly in our faith, and they helped us get to either where we're at today or how we're getting there today. In Proverbs chapter 29, verse 11, it says, a fool gives vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. This verse reminds us to watch our words when discussing certain things. And I remember there was a situation that I kind of came across back in August where a few months before August, I graduated from college, and I was currently looking for a job, my first full-time job out of college. So what I decided to do was I decided to look on LinkedIn and see what I could find. Well, I ended up finding a job that was very similar to a part-time job I had, so I was like, okay, I may not get this job, but, I'm going to apply for it. Well, next thing you know, I get a phone interview, and the day after that, I'm actually at the place getting an interview, and the next few days, I get a call back saying, oh, we're offering you the job, and I'm just like, really? Wow. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I remember I was talking to my mom, and she's like, I'm so proud of you, Andrew, for doing this, for being, pushing the envelope, I guess you could say, for, being, doing everything you can to try to find a job. And I was like, well, it's not just me that did that. I was blessed with a lot of opportunities from previous experiences, whether it was volunteer experiences or previous job experiences, to put me in that position. So before we boast in the things we discuss, we need to realize how we got to our point in our faith and who helped us succeed along the way. The second point I would like to discuss is that we need to be willing to grow as Christians. In 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 8, it says, for this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they keep you from being ineffective or unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. These few verses state that we should not be content with where we are in our faith. We need to realize that we need to learn more every day. The Apostle Paul wrote wrote that the whole body is fitly joined together and compacted by that which every joint is supplied. And that's indicated in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 16. Not only are we assisted in our spiritual growth by the brethren, we are expected to help others mature. We strive in essence, kind of to a degree, to be level 5 leaders as Christians. And the final point I would like to discuss here tonight is to be honest with ourselves. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 9, it says, "Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices." In order for anybody to be accountable, we need to be honest with ourselves, but both good or bad. And in essence, we have to be able to, as what was kind of indicated in the book, kind of look in the mirror. When we experience struggles, we need to be able to identify solutions to them. And, at times that can be difficult. For Christmas, ironically, I actually got another book that I'm reading right now. It's about a current college football coach. And there's a quote that he said in the book that kind of stood out to me about honesty. And the situation he was talking about, his team lost their final 2 games of the season and missed out on an opportunity to play for a championship. And he said this, which kind of stood out to me. He said, "As distraught as I was at the way the season ended, I could tell you it was the most productive pain I could have experienced. It forced me to evaluate every aspect of what we were doing and to be brutally honest with myself." That kind of honesty, whether it's a hard look at yourself or your team, it is not easy. It requires time, effort, and courage, and probably most of all, courage. If you don't identify and expose the issue, you are never going to be able to solve it. If you try to ignore a problem or run away from it, whether it is poor punt coverage, an underwhelming employee, or a department in your company, or a growing disconnect in your marriage, it is only going to get worse. Before we can develop accountability, we must be honest as ourselves as Christians. We must be honest. We must be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, "Why am I growing because of my faith?" Or "Why am I not growing, and how do I get to where I need to be?" So to conclude, the 3 points I discussed tonight were, none of us has ever experienced success on our own, and we always need to give thanks to those, especially God, for all the opportunities He's blessed us with. We need to be willing to grow in our faith and help others grow along the way. And we need to be honest with ourselves and evaluate ourselves as to determine where we are in our faith, or why aren't we where we need to be. As we go throughout another year, let us become more aware of where we are in our faith and continue to grow and bring others along with us. Like the theme for Summit 2015, let's be transformed Christians. If you wish to be baptized or need the prayers of the church, please come forward as we stand and sing.